Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a tool that is absolutely critical for anyone building a product, the roadmap. We're going to break down what it is, why it's so important, and, how you can actually build one that drives some real impact. So let's jump right in. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the chaos of product development. You've got ideas coming from sales, you've got feedback from customers, requests from leadership. It is so easy to get pulled in a dozen different directions at once. And without a clear guide, teams can end up working on stuff that just doesn't connect, wasting precious time and money. A good roadmap? Well, that gives you those guardrails. It keeps everyone moving toward the exact same destination. So, how do you navigate all that chaos, right? How do you make sure that every single feature, every sprint, every little decision you make is pushing you closer to your ultimate goal? Well, the answer is a powerful, strategic, and well-communicated product roadmap. It's really the bridge that connects your big vision to the day-to-day reality. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about navigating the product fog, to really understand the problem. Then, we'll get into what a roadmap actually is and architect a blueprint with a 5-step process. We'll also cover the realities of who owns this thing and some common pitfalls to avoid. And finally, we'll look at what the path to real roadmapping maturity looks like. First up, let's talk about navigating what I like to call the product fog. This is that all-too-common state of confusion where teams are super busy, they're working hard, but they're not necessarily effective. And it's all because they lack a clear, shared direction. So let's be super clear about what we're talking about here. A product roadmap isn't just a list of features or some Gantt chart. No, it's a strategic document. It visualizes your product's journey. And the most important part? It connects the day-to-day work, the how, to the high-level why your product even exists. It all comes back to that vision. Okay, so we know what it is, but what does a great roadmap actually do? What's its main job inside an organization? A really effective roadmap serves a bunch of key goals. First, it communicates that product vision to everyone, making sure the whole team is on the same page. It helps stakeholders agree on what's important, which makes those tough calls about what to build now versus later a whole lot easier. And maybe most importantly, it makes sure every piece of work actually serves a bigger business goal, keeping the team focused on what truly matters. All right, now we're at the heart of our explainer. How do you actually build one of these things? Let's walk through a super practical 5-step framework for architecting your product roadmap from the ground up. So here's the 5-step architecture. We're going to start at the very top, the 30,000-foot view, by understanding the company strategy. From there, we'll define the product's specific strategy. Then, we manage the constant flow of ideas, break down the work into features, and finally, organize it all into a release plan. You see how each step just flows right into the next? It creates this clear line of sight from the company's biggest goals all the way down to execution. Step 1 is absolutely foundational. You've got to decompose the company strategy. Your product doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? You have to start by taking the company's big strategic goals and funneling them down into specific product initiatives. For example, let's say the company goal is to increase revenue. Well, your product initiative might be something like improve user onboarding, because you have a hypothesis that a better first experience leads to more paying users. See the connection? Step 2 is all about defining the product's own strategy. One of the sources for this called it the art of the general in war, which I just think is brilliant. You have to be crystal clear on these 4 points. Where are you going to play? How are you going to win? What weapons do you have in your arsenal? And how are you going to defend your position over the long term? Your entire roadmap has to be built on solid answers to these questions. Okay, next up, you need a system for handling that constant flow of ideas. Let's be real. You can't build everything, so you need a way to find the signal in all the noise. This is where you use a prioritization framework to figure out what's going to deliver the most value. A really popular one is the RICE score, that stands for reach, impact, confidence, and effort. Using a framework like this helps shift those conversations from, who shouts the loudest to an actual data-informed decision. It cuts down on politics and keeps the focus on customer value. Now it's time to get a little more granular. You take your prioritized ideas and you break them down into actionable work. This usually means grouping related features into bigger themes. In the world of agile development, we call these epics. You can think of an epic like a chapter in a book. Then you break that chapter down into individual stories, which are these small, user-focused descriptions of a feature. This gives your engineering team all the context they need to go and build the right thing. And finally, step 5 is where it all comes together visually. You take all the what and the why from the previous steps and you finally answer that all-important question, when? This is where you actually plot your prioritized initiatives onto a timeline, creating the roadmap document that everyone's going to see and use day to day. And here's a great example of what that can look like in the real world. See? It doesn't have to be some super complicated thing. A simple table like this can be incredibly effective. As you can see, you've got columns for the specific feature, the bigger initiative it supports, its priority and effort levels, and, of course, its current status. A simple format like this is fantastic for keeping everyone on the same page. So, you've built your roadmap. Great. But the work isn't over. In fact, it's really just beginning. Let's talk about the practical side of things, about managing this living, breathing document. Okay, so this is a crucial point. Who owns this thing? The answer is clear: the product manager. The PM is basically the conductor of the orchestra here. They're responsible for gathering all the inputs, facilitating all those strategic conversations, and making sure the roadmap gets built and stays up to date, all through collaborating with design, engineering, marketing, the whole team. But hey, it's not easy. There are some really common traps. For example, a roadmap with way too much detail. That just becomes a rigid project plan that breaks the second anything changes. But one that's too vague, it gives no real guidance. But maybe the biggest pitfall of all is just letting it get stale. An outdated roadmap is honestly worse than having no roadmap at all, because it creates misalignment, it kills trust, and it makes the whole exercise feel totally pointless. Finally, let's talk about the evolution of all this. A roadmap isn't a static thing you create once. How your organization uses it will, and it absolutely should, mature over time. And you can really see that evolution here. So many teams start at stage 1, right? Where the roadmap is basically just a list of tasks handed down to engineers. The goal is to move along this path all the way to stage 5, where the roadmap becomes the shared strategic document that everyone in the company understands and actually rallies around. It's a huge shift from just focusing on what we're building to truly understanding why we're building it. And that right there is the ultimate destination. When your roadmap finally reaches maturity, it's no longer just some document for the product team. It becomes a tool for total organizational alignment. It's what ensures that every single person, from an intern all the way up to the CEO, understands exactly how their individual work contributes to the bigger picture. And we definitely want to give a quick shout out to the source of some of these fantastic insights, which is Deepak Dio's AI Product Management Playbook. It's a really great resource for anyone who's looking to level up their product leadership skills. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Take a look at your own product roadmap. Is it just a checklist of things to do? Or does it tell a compelling story about where you're all going and why it matters? Because the difference between those two, well, that's everything. Thanks for watching.